NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Hercules Tire.
60 minutes of local, regional, and touring series interviews, news, and opinion. Now a couple of guys whose parents never had one of those, my child is an honor student at stickers on their car. Kyle Rickey and Buddy Law.
The closest finish in NASCAR K&N East history sends another new winner to victory lane. Myers wins the nightcap at Bowman Gray, while Pitkat pulls the daily double at Stafford. Welcome to NASCAR Coast to Coast for, hard to believe, Wednesday, June 1st.
We are a month away from halfway, really.
Where did the first half of this year go?
Well, it rained for the better part of the first half of the year for many racetracks.
That's the folks at Utica Rome Speedway in New York.
No, my
Five
gosh.
in a row this past Sunday.
They don't want to see May again. They're so happy to see June 1st. They can't wait till this upcoming Sunday, and I pray that June is much better.
And I think Columbus Motor Speedway had another rainout as well in Ohio. They are 4 rainouts, 5 rainouts and 4 races. I don't know. It's pretty even with the number of events that they have got in. It was a busy weekend, though. A couple of rainouts, but for the most part, everybody got in, including the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East. They raced for the very first time at Dominion Raceway in Virginia. Buddy Long was there. Kind of bring us through your day, your thoughts on the new speedway that we've talked about a couple of times now. I think this was only, their third or fourth event since they opened up about a month and a half ago.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously is night and day from the very beginning when anything that could happen for them did. That particular Saturday night, they were hampered by rain a couple of times. They've had probably a good half a dozen weekends that they were scheduled to race, a couple of rainouts just like everybody else has had. A very good weekly racing series crop of late model drivers. And, of course, being Monday, it was a weekend off or a day off for a lot of drivers like Matt Bowling, the Whelen All-American Series points leader. He was there. A few other drivers that you wouldn't normally see, but 31 late models were in the pits. When their season started, I think they were sitting right around that number, 28 to 32. So had a very good program. A lot of things I really liked about what I saw. Number one, they were hampered by rain on Sunday, both series, they and the K&N Pro Series East. So they were kind of jammed up on Monday. When we got there about 12:15 on Monday, late models were just taking to the track. It was practice/qualifying to get them lined up for their race. Right after that, it was the K&N Pro Series East drivers with about a half-hour, 45-minute session. They ended up at 1 o'clock. They were done. And at 1:15 to 1:20, late models were on the track. Their 100-lapper was underway. Now, right after that, the K&N drivers still hadn't qualified. So while they were scheduled to start at 2:45 for their qualifying, I believe there was still the threat of some rain in the area. We felt an occasional spit here and there. They kind of expedited that. K&N drivers were there, qualified, and it wasn't that much of a gap between the time qualifying ended to the time they started the event. And I would say by about 5:30, we were out of there. Very good race.
Efficient event. I'm not sure. I understand why. I don't know why they would run the 100-lap late model race before K&N qualifying and split it up. I don't know if they needed the room in the infield or whatever, but get all the qualifying done and then do.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's obviously something they'll probably look at as they go to next year, because I do know that this is something they want to work on an annual basis, make it an annual deal. And Edwin Pardue, who we had on the show earlier this year, the general manager for the Speedway, mentioned on the PA. He also serves as the primary announcer that he was definitely going to be chatting with Rick Godovic, who provided 2 cars in the race for Brian Henderson and Dylan Bassett, but was also the race sponsor, that they wanted this to become an annual deal. And I can honestly tell you, and I know you would sit in the stands and you would look at some of the same things. We're picking apart things. We're trying to figure out, okay, what's wrong, what needs to change. There was very little that you can see for a brand new facility. I mean, they've got the vision screen in the center. If there was downtime, you were kept busy. There was never a time when you felt, will they ever get going with their next phase of the program?
Right.
They always had something going. 3 announcers, one in the grandstands that was doing trivia, another one that was downstairs. He was doing interviews with drivers, keeping everybody abreast of what was going on. It was always something active. They're always doing something. And I think they've taken a lot of nuances that you see from Charlotte and Daytona. They have the big screen. Well, they do the Saturday night or the Friday night movies. You can go in there, pay to watch a movie, and have a good time. As far as Daytona, when you get to the top of the grandstands, you are on the second level of what is a massive 3-story tower. Garage doors go up, and that's when you go into the concession area. To your right is a pro shop and a gift shop. Right in front of you is a really huge concession area. To the left is a full-blown bar, just like one of the Budweiser or Bud Light bars we saw at Daytona, and then a lounge area where you can sit up top, watch the races, enjoy your food, or go back down into the grandstands. But it reminds me so much of Daytona on that mezzanine level. When you go through that area, you can walk right out in your eye level with the flag stand and then go right down into the grandstands.
I'm sold.
There's very few things that I see, and it's a track that's still under construction.
Right.
The road course still has a long way to go. Not a long way, but they're getting close. There's just some things that are left to do, and I'm telling you, when you go back there next year, all the grass will be there, all the gravel and everything will be in place. It's going to be a magnificent facility.
And the fans that were in attendance saw a pretty darn good race. One of the closest, if not the closest, finish in series history, 5,000ths of a second between Spencer Davis, the race winner, Justin Haley in second. There are several videos out there from various angles of that final lap. What an amazing last lap.
It was, and I'll tell you, the bulk of the people, because it's a split second where you get to see it. I mean, it was reminiscent of Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. at Daytona. But it was funny because Justin was parked right before he got to the start-finish line after the race was over. Spencer went the other way, and they were like face-to-face, grill-to-grill. And then all of a sudden, Edwin, who was just having a good old time with it, while Chris Wright and the entire group of NASCAR officials were looking at every piece of video, looking at the anything they could, scoring, timing and scoring, the video, anything that to make sure they made the right call. And from the naked eye, in a split second, people thought it was Justin that won. But when you look at it, and there's a lot of pictures on social media, it's as close as you can get. I would not have wanted to make that call, but Spencer Davis eked it out.
And we'll have Spencer Davis to talk about it here in a little bit and what that time was like between the finish of the race and the officials finally deciding the race winner. Spencer Davis held off Justin Haley, Noah Gragson, Kaz Grala, and Austin Terrio, rounding out the top five. Good field, 24 cars on hand at the racetrack this past weekend. Good race overall?
It was. I mean, excuse me, it's got 12 degrees of banking in the turns, 9 degrees down the straightaways, a lot of good hard racing. You still want to win the battle down to the bottom. And actually, I believe it was Kyle on the outside. Spencer was down, speaking of Kyle Benjamin, he was so good up through the gearbox every time. And that's what led to the eventual controversy and why we got to where we ended up eventually. Whether it was Benjamin missing a shift, that's what one camp says. Whether it was Dylan Bassett getting under the rear end of Kyle's car before he could get on the gas and raising the rear wheels up, that's what you're hearing from another camp. Who's right, you don't know. But it ended up leading to some carnage for a few drivers, including Kyle Benjamin, who took a major hit in the series points. There were 24 there. He ended up finishing 23rd in the event. So by virtue of Justin being right up there in the thick of the battle for the win, that's kind of opened up the biggest gap we've had so far this year in the points.
Yeah, Kyle Benjamin second in the championship standings, but 19 points behind the championship leader, Justin Haley, as we go to the next race at the Stafford Motor Speedway in a couple of weeks. So we'll talk to Spencer a little bit about that. We're also going to focus a lot of today's show about the modifieds. Haven't talked much about them the last couple of weeks.
Why not? I mean, you're a modified guy. What's wrong?
But they haven't been.
You're letting Craig make your choices for you, aren't you?
Poor choices. They haven't been. Wow. There we go. Haven't been in action much, but the NASCAR Wheel and Modify Tour back in action this Friday night at the Stafford Motor Speedway. We're going to talk with Woody Pitcat, who won not only the SK Modified race last Friday night, but also the late model race, filling in for a driver that was on suspension. Yeah,
Michael Bennett had to sit out. Woody got in behind the wheel, and, of course, he's done so very well. He's just like Keith Rocco. I mean, each and every week, if you put those guys in modifieds and late models on a weekly basis, there'll be two of them battling for that Wheel and All-American Series championship. But it just proves how good he is, even though he's not been behind the wheel of a late model for a while. Not that long, but get right back in and put it right into victory lane.
So Woody will join us coming up a little bit, talk about his double duty this past Friday night. And Jason Myers also did double duty, mainly in the same car, because they had twin 25s this past week at Bowman Gray Stadium. Going to catch up with Jason and see how the first month of Bowman Gray Stadium is rolling on as he went to victory lane in race number 2 on Saturday night. Looked like another healthy field, as it always is there.
Yeah, they've had rain. They got bit on opening night, but they've had quite a bit of parity. I think they've had several different winners in the first part of their racing season. Tim Brown was one of the winners along with Jason. We've had some other guys that have found their way into victory lane, so it's been a good competitive start to the season up there.
Speaking of the modifieds, in Connecticut, Tyler Chadwick got his first win of the season, I believe, at the New London Waterford Speed Bowl. Keith Rocco, nowhere to be found, at least in the top 5, because it was Chadwick holding off last week's winner, Dylan Izzo. Bruce Thomas Jr. won in the late models. These are big fields of cars that could go a long way for, say, Keith, who's trying to run for this national championship. He's falling short, and, I think as I say it often, the Keith Rocco Express is kind of derailed a little bit right now up in Connecticut.
Yeah, and doing a little research on Woody, I mean, when you look at Stafford Motor Speedway, and Keith runs there as well, that's the toughest. That is one of the toughest venues, if not the toughest, on Friday night or on a weekend of short track racing, the SK Mods. I mean, so far 32 drivers have been there in the point standings, and I believe a fourth of that is rookies, which is great. Says a lot about the series as drivers continue to churn through and move up through the ranks. But, you're going to have to hope somebody like Rowan Pennick and Teddy Christopher have some bad nights here and there if you're going to gain on those guys. It's a tough nut to crack.
Absolutely. We'll talk more about the modifieds here in a little bit with both Jason Myers and Woody Pitcat. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East race this past weekend at Dominion Speedway. And it was down to that much. 5,000ths of a second between Spencer Davis and Justin Haley's. The race winner, Spencer Davis, joins us after the break.
NASCAR Coast to Coast will be right back on MRN.com.
If it's hard to stop or you hear squealing and grinding noises during braking, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts. You'll find the brake parts you need from trusted brands like Brake Best Select, and Wagner Thermoquiet at everyday low prices. Play it safe with brake parts from O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Before you set your fantasy racing lineup, check in with our experts to get the inside line on who's fast and who's last entering the race weekend. Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett take you inside the facts, stats, and latest news from the track so you have everything you need to set your team and win the weekend. Log on to MRN.com and enter the Media Center every Friday. It's the inside line on demand and only on the Motor Racing Network.
When the smoke settles, the entertainment never stops.
It's everybody just trying to say my last name. They just don't finish it.
On race weekends, your favorite NASCAR personality is an everyday superhero.
And here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr.
But when they leave the racetrack, they're just like everyone else.
For the most part, our hearts were wagon makers.
I'm Susie Armstrong. Join me on a daily journey as we discuss the hot topics and engaging personalities of NASCAR Nation. Ned Jarrett's World of Racing, weekdays on the Motor Racing Network.
This is NASCAR K&N Pro East Series driver J.A. Jr., and you're listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Now back to you, Kyle and Buddy.
All right, thank you very much, J.A. Coming back with a 12th place finish this past weekend at Dominion. Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast.
You're going to get in trouble.
Hercules Tire.
All right. Hey, we'll do kudos. We'll cross-promote. Congratulations, you were there. Greg Wilson picking up the World of Outlaws Sprint win in the Hercules Tire-sponsored car at Charlotte, the dirt track at Charlotte. Great job.
Great race. Friday night at the dirt track at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and you can learn more about that on this week's episode of Wing Nation.
Okay. Is it on MrN.com too? Okay. MRN.com.
MRN.com with Postman and Aaron. Want to welcome in Spencer Davis, the newest winner of the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East, and also a member of this year's NASCAR Next Class. Spencer, welcome to the show, and congratulations on the win. Probably the most thrilling win we have seen in a while in the K&N Series, and obviously in your career.
Yes, sir. First of all, thanks for having me on. And, that win was definitely a nail-biter, man.
Kind of a bittersweet weekend, obviously, for you and your teammate Kyle Benjamin, who was very dominant, very good all weekend long, but you were right there in the hunt the entire time. What was the difference? And take us through it. I know in the first half you guys are racing hard, trying to position yourself for that second 75. When the second half started, you guys pretty much stuck with Kyle, but he looked like he was so good on restarts. What was the difference between the two of you on those restarts?
Oh, yeah. We just struggled on restarts all night. Just, couldn't get the power to the ground. Always just kind of spin the rears no matter what we did. It's just it was kind of an awkward angle coming up to the restart line. You were kind of coming out of the banking, so it kind of upset the rear of the car. So, he kind of had a better vantage point being on the top side right there, which really benefited him on restarts.
So when you got to the checkered flag and the finish line were side by side with Justin Haley, you thought who won, you or Justin?
In that position, I'm sure Justin thought he won also, but it's so close. You kind of gotta think you won that one because you both, on both ends, you both thought you kind of beat each other to the line. But in my mind, there was a little bit of doubt because there's always to my mind, there's going to be that little bit of doubt when you finish that close. But the majority of me said that we had that thing won. It was right there at the end. It was our race to lose anyways, and I just had to do what I had to do to go win, and we were just we came across the line bumping fenders.
Classic battle coming off of turn 4 down for the checkered flag, door handle to door handle, just leaning on one another as hard as you possibly could. And I was alluding to it to Kyle earlier. Once it was over, before you guys realized who won, one of you was on one side of the start-finish line, one the other. It was like the Mexican standoff, just looking grill to grill. And the announcer was asking, all right, fans, while we're waiting for the final outcome, who do you think won? And I think a few thought they saw a little bit of blue, but obviously that wasn't the case. How many times have you looked on social media and anywhere else at that finish?
I've seen that finish quite a lot. I've been tagged in it in all 3 major forms of social media about that photo a lot. And there's a four camera angle of the finish that's been floating around a lot. And man, it's so close. I mean, I couldn't imagine how long it took NASCAR and how many people up there had to look at that photo to really judge. But it clearly shows it on them that right there at the line, the 41 was just barely ahead. And when I mean barely, I mean it couldn't have been a half inch at that in front of the 5 car.
That much.
If that
I'm
much.
Just saying, that much. Thoughts on the whole weekend as a whole for the team? Rainier racing with MDM, obviously doing well in qualifying, getting the pole with Kyle. Yourself picking up the race win. What do you think you guys hit on there out of the box with the test day on Saturday and then race day on Sunday?
Yeah, most definitely. I believe we, the 40, I think most definitely led both practices, on Saturday and Monday and qualified on the pole. But, I'm not sure what they hit on Saturday. Me and my father were traveling from Pensacola, where I'd actually raced a super late model race down there. So, unfortunately we couldn't practice on Saturday, but, whatever they hit on with the 40 car was definitely really good. And, me and my crew chief sat down. It was a little bit hard to totally change your game plan, but so we stuck to our ground right there and stayed with our package. But man, whatever we found out over here, as a whole team has made both cars really fast. I know my crew chief and Kyle's crew chief, Doug Howe and Marty Lindley, have been working real hard on these cars, trying different things at the shop during the week, just testing them out to see what works. And, obviously it's showed because the 40 or the 41, I think, has been the class of the field every time.
And right now, second and third in the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East points. Justin Haley, by virtue of that second-place run, and Kyle's misfortunes towards the end, kind of created that gap a little bit. Now, we've talked about different racetracks that you've gone to, Greenville, Pickens, New Smyrna, and we have been so impressed with how drivers keep the car underneath of them. They have to be great managers of tires and so many different things on worn-out racetracks. When you come to a brand-new facility, fresh asphalt like Dominion Raceway, are you still cognizant, or you still have to be very cognizant about tire management as much, or are there other things that you have to be more cognizant about with this new facility?
Yeah, most definitely on that. All the tracks we've been to so far have been real key on tire conservation. But this weekend, it was like you qualified every lap. I was honestly a little bit surprised. It was like my home track, Gresham Motorsports Park, with the new asphalt. It was just so fast, and it showed rarely any tire wear on the tires. During our practice sessions. So, from my mind, right from the get-go, was to go as hard as you can go. And it showed. I mean, I was qualifying every lap trying to keep up with the 40 car, and it was all I could do then. So we always kind of thought in the back of our heads maybe tire conservation would work, but it showed that going hard every lap this weekend was the way to go, because I believe we put a straightaway on third. Me and my teammate Kyle did.
Thoughts on the racetrack as a whole? Buddy just talked to us a little bit ago at the start of the show about what an incredible facility it is. The first time he's been able to race there or go there as a fan this year. Your first time there as a competitor. Your thoughts as what you thought about this being one of NASCAR's newest home tracks.
First off, I'm really going to commend them on their amazing facility. I mean, that whole place is real nice, real first-class racetrack. I mean, everything they built, they put real effort into and made it really, really A1, really. I mean, I think that's one of the nicest the nicest short track I've been to in a very long time. The nicest short track before that I've been to was Gresham, and it was a very nice short track. But this place set the bar to the next level. I mean, when you walk in there, it feels like you're walking into a cup track. And from a racing standpoint, the track itself is very nice. Real smooth surface. It wasn't really one lane, even though everyone ran the bottom. And just overall, the whole track was nice. I mean, really, I don't see a single problem with that whole place.
And you look at that, you look at the quality of the racetrack, you look at the quality of the two cars. One of the questions I was going to have for you, and I think this past weekend at Dominion, you guys may have already answered it by your actions. You're going to newer facilities this year. You're going to Dominion. You're going to Stafford Motor Speedway. It's been around for a while, but a track that's new to the K&N Series. You're going to New Jersey Motorsports Park. And when you tie this into the battle for the Series championship, Justin Haley, who was on this tour a year ago, has the edge with a lot of the racetracks, not those, but the others that were on the schedule last year. Do you feel like when you go to some of these newer facilities, this is where you might have the edge, albeit by just a couple of inches over Justin, if you guys have a legitimate shot of winning this championship this year?
First off, I really do think we still have a legitimate shot at the championship as a team on the 41 side. And also on the 40 side, I believe hopefully it comes down to us too. But most definitely I feel like we might have a little bit of an advantage. But, you look at the two organizations that are first, second, and third. I mean, they're both top-notch teams. H. Scott has been around for a while. And just everyone there is real knowledgeable, And also on over here at Rainier, everyone's been around for a long time, not just on the K&N Series. So, I'm sure at some point, all our crew chiefs, Justin's crew chief, my crew chief, and Kyle's crew chief have most likely been to the new tracks that are new to us. So, they do have probably some prior notes from some different form of racing. So, but you always got to think you might have a little bit of an upper edge coming into a new racetrack. Because not necessarily that you haven't been there, you may have been there, but just because you got to believe in yourself as a driver. That when you go out to that new track, that hopefully you will be the fastest one out there.
Next stop for the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East in a couple of weeks on June 17th at the Stafford Motor Speedway. First time that the series has been there in a number of years, but you have some laps there. Granted, it was in a modified. But do you believe that those laps may give you a bit of an advantage, at least going into the race day? And how could that help you in a full-bodied, much heavier stock car?
Most definitely, because I know, as you guys also know, Stafford isn't a conventional line around a racetrack. It's a little bit different. It kind of mimics Thompson as far as how you run the track, and so I think that's definitely going to help, just knowing what to expect at that track, knowing what tire wear does. Even though in a modified, you got those big wide tires, you still have some degree of tire wear. So I really think it's going to help me a little bit being there prior to this weekend, or this coming up race weekend for the K&N cars. But at the same time, a K&N Pro Series car is a totally different animal than a modified. It's like two totally different ends of the spectrum. One car is real heavy, high, not a lot of tire. Then you got the modified that's real low to the ground, a lot of tire and a lot of motor. So, there's going to be a little bit different challenges on, from one to another. But, I feel, like I said, just overall, I think it will help to, race a race or two there before.
Well, the calendar says June 1st today, but I've got to believe the month of May had to be one of the most exciting months for you in the course of your history, culminating with the ComServe Wireless Memorial Day Classic. But also, a couple of weeks ago, Kyle and I had a chance, Kyle did over at GoPro Motorplex, to catch up with you as one of the newest members of the NASCAR Next class for 2016. Take us through your emotions when you found out you were going to be a member of that class, and what's been transpiring ever since.
Oh, yeah. I was working at the shop with the guys on the 41 car, getting it ready for, I don't remember where we were going exactly, but, NASCAR called me up and asked, first off, they obviously asked if it was me. But, when they told me I was part of the NASCAR Next class, at first I was in disbelief. I thought someone was joking with me because it's something that it's something that you really don't think about that you're going to get in because, you always think there might be someone just a tad bit better to get in that class. But, when they finally convinced me that it was actually them and that I was actually in it, I was definitely shocked because out of everyone in the U.S. between the age range there that races in NASCAR, I was one of the 11 people picked, and that's really, really cool to me. And it's definitely a real honor because you look at the people that have came from the NASCAR Next class. Almost all of them are still in one of the top 3 series. You look at Chase and Blaney, and they're up there in Cup, and then you look at people like Ben Rose that have still in the Truck Series. And just, it's been real fun so far. Also, the whole month of being in the NASCAR Next class, we got to be on Fox Sports for the announcement. We also got to to tour the R&D Center. We also got to go race GoPro. And Kyle Rickey was there, and I think me and him had one heck of a race.
He was in my mirror, I think, most of the time.
If he was in your mirror.
He was.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Spencer, you let him get in front of you?
Oh, yeah.
God.
I had enough speed to qualify on the pole, but I was just missing just a little bit in the race. I let Kyle slip by, and I couldn't get back by him.
Yeah, that's it. So,
all right.
Spencer, thanks for joining us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Congratulations on the win, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again here down the road.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on, and, I look forward to coming on the show next time.
Look forward to it. 5,000th of a second between himself and Justin Haley at the finish this past Monday at Dominion Raceway. When we come back, we're going to talk modified racing with Jason Myers, and we'll focus on Bowman Gray Stadium.
Coming back with more of NASCAR Coast to Coast, it's Kyle Rickey and Buddy Long right after this.
Race on over to mrn.creekstonefarms.com now through June 8th and enter our Sizzlin' Steak Sweepstakes, where you can win a gift certificate good for $500 in Creekstone Farms premium Black Angus beef and all-natural Duroc pork. No purchase necessary, open to legal residents of the 50 United States and District of Columbia who are 21 or older at time of entry. If you want America's best Black Angus beef ribeyes, fillets, all-natural pork tenderloins, baby back ribs, and more, you've got the green light. Go to mrn.creekstonefarms.com and enter today.
Motor Racing Network has always been your source for motorsports coverage when you couldn't be at the track. Now, never miss another minute of our breathtaking coverage with the MRN app, available on your iPhone or Android device. This free app delivers all the latest news, locates nearby MRN stations, streams your favorite programs, and is your home for live Sprint Cup practice and qualifying action. Search MRN in the App Store or on Google Play. It's the Motor Racing Network at your fingertips, and it's available for free right now.
If you haven't checked out MRN.com's exclusive online programming, you've missed a lot. MRN Motorsports Monday. Review and preview the NASCAR weekends. Winged Nation talk winged sprint cars. The latest from the NHRA on the straight line. Dirt, late model, modified, and big block modified talk. Slinging dirt. NASCAR regional, local, and international series on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Exclusive original online motorsports talk on MRN.com.
This is NASCAR Wheeling Southern Modified driver Jason Myers, and you're listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Now back to Kyle and Buddy.
And coincidentally, we're about to talk to Jason Myers. Was he on the phone doing that live?
He did it live. I think he did it live.
That sounded good.
Didn't you, Jason? You did it live, right?
Yeah, of course.
No, it doesn't sound like live now.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't sound like the same volume. It sounds different.
Oh, I turned the volume down on my phone.
All right.
Big night for you this past weekend, at least the second half of the night. Ended up in victory lane at Bowman Gray Stadium. Kind of a couple of weeks into the season now. Wanted to catch up with you, see how your season has been going out at the stadium in the first 5 weeks or so.
Yeah, I mean, we've had 5 weeks. We've only had 3 nights of racing, though. Mother Nature keeps sending us home early on Saturdays. She's liking to put a lot of rain down over there this year for some reason, but we've been running very well. We were actually very lucky to pull out a win the other night. Our qualifying was if people don't understand when you talk about qualifying at Bowman Gray Stadium, you get 5 minutes of practice and you get 1 lap qualifying. So it can make or break your whole night just in those 13 and a half seconds. And it almost broke ours. We qualified 11th, and luckily it was a 25-lap night where they invert for the second race. We ended up finishing 8th in the first one, then they redrew 8 to invert for the second race, so it put us on the pole. And, you know, having a good car is just not what it's not just about having a good car at Bowman Gray. You got to be lucky. You got to be in the right place at the right time. You got to have a good car for when you do get up front, you don't get run over. But it's just tough to get there.
And I think I was mentioning that to Kyle several weeks ago. It was opening night. It was your 200 lap or the Hayes Jewelers 200. And I told him, I said, this was so cool. It wouldn't matter whether it was you or Bert or Danny Bone, who it was. But Danny got 3 laps down in that race, leading because I believe he had fluid leaking from the car. Caution came out. Danny went back to the pit area. They remedied whatever issue there was. But you guys have the lucky dog up there. And even though you got rained out, I think, by lap 32 or 34, because of the cautions that came out, he had made up 3 laps before they got to lap 32, which was pretty cool. And I think eventually by the time that race was run the very next week, he had a top 5 run. So I understand exactly what you're talking about. You have to be in the right place at the right time, even when you have an issue like that. Do you like the lucky dog deal?
Yeah, definitely. You know, we've pushed it for the last couple of years to try to get them to give a lucky dog, and they haven't been very willing to work with us. And then this year they decided that it would make for better racing if you know, especially on those long races like that. If you have something happen like Danny did, or even have a flat tire and get trapped in the pits. You know, the pits are outside the track, so you know the slightest mistake on pit road is going to cost you a lap, and then your whole night's done. You don't really have a chance to make it up. So, you know, they finally put the lucky dog in effect, and that early in the race, Danny was the only car lap down. So every caution we had, he kept getting laps back. So, you know, and it actually probably would have worked out for some of us if he would have stayed a few laps down, so he wouldn't have wrecked 3 out of the top 5. But, I mean, that's Bowman Gray racing for you. So, you know, it was we thought we were going to have a pretty good night coming into that. I think we ended up with maybe a 5th or 6th place finish, but we were in contention to win there for a little while.
Twin 25s last week with an 8-car invert in between the 2 features. This week, the NASCAR Hall of Fame 100. What do you prefer? I know you obviously won one of the 25s last week, but do you prefer the short races, maybe multiple short races over a single night, or a longer event like the Hayes Jewelers 200 that Buddy was talking about a minute ago, and like this Saturday night when you guys go 100 laps?
Probably the 100-lap race is more compatible to our race style and what we like. I mean, if you can qualify on the pole every week like we did last year, and I say every week, you know, we set on 10 poles, I think, is what we had last year. So the 25-lappers were working out in our favor because that's where you pretty much got to be to win the 25-lappers. But the 100-lap races, they redraw the whole field after qualifying, which I'm not a fan of. But at least it's a race. You know, the 25-lappers are one and done as quick as you can. If you go to the bathroom, you're gonna miss them. Actually the twin 50-lappers that we do, those are some of the best racing that there is over there. The 200-lappers a little long because you end up just riding all night and, you know, just trying to be there at the end. But the 100-lappers is probably some of the best racing over there.
You guys are in the final leg of what is your big break as far as the NASCAR Whelen Southern Modified Tour is concerned. Gotten off to a pretty good start over on that side as well. I mean, you are 5th in points, I think, at both Bowman Gray and also on the Tour. 3 top 5s in your first few races this season. But you got some heavyweights up in front of you to get around, but plenty of time to do it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And we've been running well on the Tour. We've been running solid top 5s, and actually we're in contention to win at least 3 of those races. And, it's just tough. These racetracks we run on are wore out. Passing is crucial. Track position is so critical. You could be 3rd or 4th, and if the line you're in doesn't go on a restart, you're going to fall back to 5th or 6th, and then you're just kind of stuck. With a pit stop race, with only being able to change 1 tire during a pit stop, track position is so crucial. It's not like the Northern Tour where we come in around halfway and put 4 new ones on and then go back out and run hard. You have to pace yourself. You have to be. I mean, it's not as bad as Bowman Gray, but it's a lot of being in the right place at the right time. Bert and myself were running 6th and 7th the last Caraway race we ran, and it was probably 25 or 30 laps to go, and we had a good car. We could keep up, but we couldn't pass. So, we came on the radio and decided to come in and switch the left side tires and put the left rear on the left front, which, it's a modified, so we're not wearing out a left front tire. So it's kind of like coming in and getting a new tire. Well, Bert saw my guys, his pit crew radioed to him what my guys were getting ready to do on pit road. So Bert had the same idea and ducked in with me, and he ended up winning the race, and we ended up 3rd. Again, we were 6th and 7th. His line went, mine didn't. I'm trying to move the cars in front of me. Well, when you got 2 cars in front of you side by side, it's hard to move one of them. So, just little stuff like that. But we've been running good, and the way we race and as much as we race, a lot of times my finish does not reflect on how I feel about the race. It's how good I ran. I would rather run good and finish bad than I had run bad and ended up with a good finish.
Southern Modified Tour back in action July 1st, as Buddy mentioned, in about a month from now at Caraway Speedway. How much extra stress does that put on the equipment and on the crew when Bowman Gray's running the same weekend as the Southern Tour? And I know it only happens a few times, and it's by design because most of the teams run both places, but it will happen a couple of times in the month of July and early August.
It's tough, and as hot as it gets down here, especially at Bowman Gray, it's a disadvantage running Bowman Gray because you got guys like Andy Seiss and George Brunhosel that have a couple months to regroup and work on their cars and maybe go test and that kind of stuff, and they're taking it easy, and we're going as hard as we can go at Bowman Gray. So, when it comes to July 4th at Caraway, those guys are fresh and ready to go, and we're worn out. You know what I mean? We're hot, and we're tired, and, not to say it's, going to affect us, but, we still go in with all intentions of winning, but, my guys can only work so hard because, I do work them to death on these race cars.
Bowman Gray is been just so famous for so many years. The Bad House program several years back made it even more famous. And just recently, we saw Taylor Robbins do something that we haven't seen in a while in lower division racing, and that's be very successful in her class as well. Are you kind of surprised that you don't see more of a female injection of racers at Bowman Gray, where there are a lot of female drivers all over the country and a lot of our touring series in stock car racing? Are you kind of surprised you don't see more there at Bowman Gray?
I don't know. Bowman Gray's a different animal. You can't just go over there and expect to race every weekend and everything go okay and you be fine with it going home. You got to go into Bowman Gray expecting the worst. And if it doesn't work out and everything goes by smooth, you're like, we got through another week without something stupid happening. That place is unbelievable. It's not a racetrack. It's not racing. It's entertainment. and if you're a girl and you want to be a race car driver, you don't need to be at Bowman Gray Stadium. You know what I mean? If you're a young kid, if you're a Spencer Davis or somebody and you want to go on to be a race car driver, stay away from Bowman Gray Stadium. Spencer tried. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of those guys that have done that.
Mm-hmm.
that place is it's a different animal. You know, I know so many people that are good race car drivers with good race teams that go to Bowman Gray and say, hey, man, we're going to run Bowman Gray this year. You know, we're going to try to be competitive and run for the championship. And after 4 weeks, they say, dude, I don't see how y'all do this every week. We're not coming back.
And that might be why we've only had 3 ladies in Victory Lane.
It's a different animal, but it's still a good animal.
It is. It's a great animal. And that's why it's full every Saturday night. They barely find a seat in the place. We asked Bert this a couple of months ago, and he was on the show. I want to ask you, jog your memory a little bit. Your earliest memory of going to Bowman Gray Stadium?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know how old I was, maybe 2 or 3 years old. I was a very, very young kid, but I tell you that was the turning point of what I wanted to do when I grew up. As you know, it only took, I've said this plenty of times before, that it only took one time standing in Victory Lane with my dad when he won the race holding that trophy, looking at those 15,000 people in the grandstands to figure out, you know what, this is where I want to race at when I grow up.
Well, and the thing about Bowman Gray, and you talk about Victory Lane, they do it right. From the pre-race to before cars even get on the track, and I've mentioned this, Kyle knows it very well, as also that the PA announcers are on there constantly because they have got so much script in front of them from sponsorships. You look at what they're listening to what they're reading. You look at all the signs around the racetracks. You look at the different options and the different programs that are available out there, and it sells itself. I mean, I know there's a lot of hard work that goes into that place, and you guys are just the key that just unlocks the door and makes it all happen. It's just a gold mine when you look at it from the time the gate opens till the time the last checkered flag drops.
It really is. It is impressive what the management does with that place over there. The way they stay on schedule, the way everything, if they tell you the race is going to start at 8 o'clock, if you're there at 8:02, you're going to miss the first 5 laps. It's unbelievable. It's so impressive what they do over there, and they do. It's a sponsorship gold mine. You know, where else can you go put your name in front of 15,000 fans? And these are race fans, so you know how race fans are. You know how race fans are they're loyal, and you know it's not just like putting a billboard on the side of the highway. So, you know, it's unbelievable what that place is over there. It's the most impressive racetrack you'll ever go to in your whole life. And if you've never been, you need to put it on your bucket list.
Yep.
Because Bowman Gray Stadium is not the longest running NASCAR track in history for no reason.
Absolutely. And it's entertainment, as we found out as well. Great show every Saturday night from start to finish. Jason Myers picking up the race win this past weekend in race number 2. Congratulations again. Best of luck the rest of the season, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, from the show place down south for the modifieds to the show place up north. We're talking about the Stafford Motor Speedway. Woody Pitcat won twice there this past Friday night, and he'll join us after the break.
NASCAR Coast to Coast will be right back on MRN.com.
Whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules Tires will get you there, whether you're running on dirt or running a job. Our dependable, high-quality tires are the perfect fit for your needs. For unmatched value, selection, and warranty with industry-leading road hazard protection, there's only one choice: Hercules Tires. To learn more, visit HerculesTire.com or call 800-677-9535. Hercules Tires, right on our strength.
Ready to take the training wheels off your race scanner? Go to fanvision.com and upgrade your experience with FanVision. Not only will you be able to hear the race,
Dale Earnhardt Jr. gets a good run, drafting help from Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick. Jr. again pulls up alongside for the race lead.
You'll see every moment through live video, instant replays, live stats, and more.
Hi, I'm Jamie McMurray, driver of the #1 Cessna Chevrolet, and I never go to the track without my FanVision. So go to fanvision.com to rent or buy yours today.
Stay up to date with the latest news from the NASCAR Garage weekdays on NASCAR Today, midday.
We can enhance the fans' experience, and I think that's what we really need to zero in on and provide.
Hear from the drivers and teams as they chase the 2016 championship trophy.
Change is good in our sport. It re-energizes people, makes everybody, step up to the plate, so to speak.
NASCAR Today, midday, weekdays on the Motor Racing Network. your source for NASCAR news.
This is NASCAR K&N Pro Series East driver Dominique Van Weringen, and you're listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Now back to Kyle and Buddy.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Hercules Tire. You brought up a good point a moment ago. We just heard from a driver that won at NASCAR's youngest racetrack in Dominion Raceway, just opened last month, and a driver that just won at NASCAR's oldest racetrack in Bowman Gray.
From the baby in diapers to great granddaddy, we went across the board.
To a track in the middle now. And in fact, it's, I think, in the top 5 as far as the oldest for NASCAR home tracks. Might be second or third behind Bowman Gray, and that's the Stafford Motor Speedway. They came on board back in, I think, the 60s or early 70s as a NASCAR home track. Joining us now, the latest winner, Woody Pitcat. Woody, welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, and congratulations on your double this past Friday night.
Thanks. How you guys doing?
We are doing well. First, let's talk about the late model program. How did all that come together? Obviously, Michael Bennett having to serve a suspension. How were you able to jump into that ride for Friday night?
Well, I had contacted him early in the week just to to get his side of what had happened on the Friday night there when he got suspended. I figured I'd get the story from the horse's mouth instead of hearing it from everybody else. And then after that, I had just mentioned to him that I knew that it was, the 50 lapper, the biggest late model race pretty much for those guys this year, and that I had been looking for a ride and couldn't find anything. So I just let him know how much I was really interested in doing something if the car was ready. And, he said he had the car back together and didn't know what he could do because the crew chief was suspended for the week and himself. So he, I told him, well, let me know, see what you want to do, and let me know. So I guess he contacted the track, and they said, no, you're not kicked out. He said, you just can't race. So he was nice enough to work on the car for me at the track, and they got the thing together, and we went down there, and, like I said, I wanted to go there, obviously, to win if I could, and, we were fortunate enough to come out of there with a win, which was a really cool deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, when they make a chance or take a chance on a driver, they put a ringer in the car. And you've been so successful. We talked about your success in late models and modifieds in the Northeast, as well as Keith Rocco's. And the two of you kind of pattered each other because you're just as successful in one as you are in the other. You mentioned, I believe, with Michael's deal, the crew chief was also suspended as well. Did you bring some of your people with you, or was it just advancing a couple of Michael's people, or who basically was your crew chief and kind of in your ear during the event?
Yeah, actually, really, it was just Michael was pretty much, you could say, my crew chief. I had Bob Phil, who builds the chassis, was there. He was helping a little bit more. And, pretty much it was Michael doing everything. I was, had a couple little concerns that I brought up to his attention, with the brake bias and stuff like that. And I had come back, after the heat race, and he had the brake pedal out of it and couldn't figure out how to get it back in. So I had told him, I said, I was only looking for, 1 or 2 turns on the brake bias, and he was trying to get me as much as he could because he knew how important it was to try to win the race. So, hats off for him to go out and find somebody to help him put it back together. Jimmy Fuller, who had been my crew chief in the past on prior modified rides, had come down and got in there upside down and put the brake pedal back in for us and got us in good shape. So I got to obviously thank Jimmy Fuller for jumping in there when we needed him. And, his dad, Michael's dad, spotted for me, and it's just, it's a big family thing. It was, pretty much all the same crew minus the crew chief, and Michael was in the infield, coming on the radio a couple times. I think his dad wanted to yell at him not to get too excited and just let me do my thing. But all in all, I can't thank him enough for, it's got to be pretty hard to step out of a car and be in the infield watching your car go around the track when you race it week in and week out. And for him to show his attention and to work as hard as he did all night to give me the opportunity to go out there and try to win was just really cool to see. And like I said, we've grown, for a long time. We've grown together from going to the races and sleeping in their campers and going to Dover and Loudon to me racing and him being a crew member and his brother Corey on my team to him getting his own car. So it's a really cool thing. It goes, further even to that. My grandfather and his uncle were really good friends when they used to go to Lebanon Valley back before me and Corey and Michael were even thought of. So it's a really, really cool story if you know of all of it, and it was just really cool to be able to go out there and cap it off with a win. And his son's the car owner, it says, so it's cool to be able to go there and win for Chase and the whole family.
Won in the late model, backed it up with a win in the modifieds later in the night. How special is that for you? It obviously hasn't been able to happen for you in recent years in winning in multiple divisions over the course of a single night at your home racetrack, and a track that you began, for the most part, racing at about 20 years ago.
Yeah, to me, I mean, it's a huge deal, especially to do that, to double up. I think me and Keith are pretty much the only ones that have really done that on a given night. Teddy obviously has, but not in the late model, maybe, in the tour or something. But to be able to go down there and do that on any given night, you got to have all your ducks in a row, and everything's going to line up perfect. And, it just shows, that the teams that I drive for, the great teams and the great people that I'm surrounded with, the sponsors, everything. It's really cool to be able to do that. It's hard enough just to win one. You're happy just to come out of there with one win on any given night. But to be able to do that, like I said, it's really cool. And obviously, I've kind of have struggled in the last couple of years, with the SK team there, jumping on a new team with Adam Scavera and all his guys. But I think we're, finally in the right direction this year. I think we're on all 8 cylinders. Besides the first Friday night there where we got tangled up and had to rebuild the car, but I think we're going to be in good shape, and I think we're going to be somebody to reckon with this year and being in contention to win races and compete for the championship at the end of the year like I have in the past. So that's a really cool feeling, and I'm just excited to go there week in, week out, and do the best that we can and try to win.
Clearly, from a race fan's perspective, it's some of the best racing on a Friday night. We've touched on that for years here on the, whether it be the Modified Madness or the NASCAR Coast to Coast show for several years. Stafford's got to be one of the toughest nuts to crack as far as SK Modified Racing is concerned. Right now, Rowan's up top, Teddy Christopher, Keith Rocco, yourself, Ronnie Williams. Those are just 5 of the drivers that run, and we were talking about it at the top of the broadcast when we mentioned you were going to be on. 32 drivers so far in the point standings in Stafford. Not all of them have run all 3 races this year, but a fourth of your field are rookies. We've already talked about the health of the sport, the Whelen Modified Tour, the drivers and SKs that eventually make their way up there. But you've got a good feeder system below you as well in the SK Lights. In other lower divisions of drivers that want to eventually get in the SK Mods, it just looks like it's getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool thing to sit up in the stands and watch these the talent in the SK Light division and those kids that have moved up into the SKs, like the Cop Chicks and the Salvos and all those guys. I mean, it's really unbelievable. I mean, you look at a guy like Chase Dowling that, didn't do a whole lot of racing at Stafford. I mean, he did a couple years. He had a really good year in the SK Lights and then pretty much ran 1 year in the SKs and went right to the Tour. And, I mean, he's doing a phenomenal job, I think. He's a really good talent, and it's really cool to see that. The SK Lights, they put on just as good of as a show as the SKs, but like you hit there with the SK competition, I mean, it's unbelievable. Like you say, you have 5 or 6 guys that run SKs weekly and the Tour, and then you have, the veterans that are there, the Eric Burns, the Todd Owens, the guys that have been there, the Dan Avery's and Tommy Bowles, and then you got these rookies coming up. So on any given night, you really have, probably 20 guys, 18 to 20 guys that could win. So I think it's harder than the competition is stiffer than the Modified Tour, to be honest with you. But it's nice to go there every Friday night, and Stafford, Jackaroo and his family and everybody does an awesome job and gives us a first-class establishment to race at, and just a really cool thing to see those guys, what they're doing, coming on up the ladder.
NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour at the track this Friday night. You'll be in action driving for Kevin Stewart. What's your schedule look like this season with that team? Now we hit the 4th race of the year, and you've been at all of them.
Yeah, we had only planned to do like 10 or 12 of them, and then we ended up going to Waterford. That was one we weren't going to do. The last 2 races we haven't had too much success. We've been running okay. We were right in the top 10 and got into some late race mishaps. So as of right now, I think we're going to, at least for me, I feel like we just need to at least finish a race. Obviously Stafford's coming up. You want to be contending for the win because that's what we do. But just to change the morale and get the confidence built back up, we need to go there and finish. A top 10 would be great to come out there in one piece with a top 10. But at the end of the day, you want to win too. But as of right now, I think it's mainly the Staffords, the Thompsons, Loudon, probably not Riverhead. He want to go to Oswego. And we're going to see how we're going. If we're going all right, maybe we'll go to Monadnock or Seekonk. He had said, a week or two ago that business was good and it was up to us what we want to do. So I want to, like I said, start finishing these races and getting some good consistent finishes and hopefully we can turn the ball around and compete for a win here towards the end of the year or who knows, maybe Friday night would be the night to do it. So we'll see. I think we're going to be a lot better. Spot, my old crew chief, lended help this week, the last couple weeks, and Billy Colton from Troyer has, given me some more help in the past couple of days here. So I think we're going to be in good shape, and I'm looking forward to get to Stafford and hopefully change our luck there so we can go to some more races.
Well, we'll be watching on Friday night. Best of luck to you, Woody. Tell Erica we said hello as always.
There we go.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell her.
All right, Woody Pitcat joining us. Two-time winner this past Friday night at the Stafford Motor Speedway, winning in the late model and the SK Modified. Looking for a tour win this Friday night. Back to wrap things up in a moment.
Coming back with more of NASCAR Coast to Coast, it's Kyle Rickey and Buddy Long right after this.
If it's hard to stop or you hear squealing and grinding noises during braking, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts. You'll find the brake parts you need from trusted brands like Brake Best Select, and Wagner Thermoquiet at everyday low prices. Play it safe with brake parts from O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Missed the race this weekend?
Danica Patrick is up in flames. Paul Menard will crash.
Or just want to relive the best moments?
That was an amazing finish.
Catch all of the action and highlights right here.
Jimmy Johnson gets nailed, and it's a big one.
It's the Sprint Cup replay getting you on the fast track to victory lane.
Woo! Good job, Kansas, yes.
Don't be left out of the conversation Monday at work. Listen to the Sprint Cup replay on MRN.com Mondays at 7 a.m. and 1 p.m.
This is NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Here's Kyle and Buddy.
Back on NASCAR Coast to Coast here on the Motor Racing Network, wrapping things up. A busy weekend across the country as far as short tracks are concerned. There were tracks in action, like we mentioned earlier in the show. Irwindale Speedway, they had a pair of races for their late model division. Trevor Huddleston, Christian McGee picked up the race wins. Their next event is on June 11th.
Trevor should be high up in the Whelen All-American Series points, which he was last week. Another driver doing very good in the Whelen All-American Series. Well, get that out. I listened to Woody too much. Chase Purdy, 2 wins again at Greenville Pickens Speedway. He's got 7 for the year.
Dominic Ursetter back in victory lane in the super late model at Colorado National Speedway. A.J. Warren won in the Pro Trucks. Their next race is this Saturday night.
Lee Pulliam took the Memorial Day Weekend Classic at Caraway Speedway. It was Jeff Oakley in the late models at Dominion Raceway.
Mentioned Tyler Chadwick picked up the SK Modified win at Waterford Speed Bowl. Bruce Thomas Jr. in the late models. They're back in action this Saturday night.
Sam Yarborough, for the first time this year, returned back to Myrtle Beach Speedway. Took a pair of victories there as the series defending champion.
John Reynolds Jr. back in victory lane in the late model division at Rockford Speedway in Illinois. Christopher Jones won in the Sportsman. They're back in action in 2 weeks on June 11th.
Beach Ridge Motor Speedway up in Maine, one of the final tracks to get their season kicked in. Pro Series win went to Reed Lanford. They'll continue their Whelen All-American Series this Saturday night.
Our own Jeff Striegel back in victory lane with his driver Dave Lake as they won the modified division again, I think for the third time this year at Berlin Raceway in Michigan. This past weekend. This coming weekend, free hot dogs to the first 500 admissions. Get there early.
Hey, Sean Salamito, 2 times a winner at Riverhead Raceway, the Wall of Fame night. This weekend, it's the Baldwin Evans Jerzambach NASCAR 77. That's always a fun one to watch.
That's at the Riverhead Raceway. The modified tour is at Stafford, and for the first time since 1998, Ted Christopher won't be in a modified tour race at Stafford Motor Speedway. Want to thank everybody on the show, Spencer Davis, Jason Myers, and Woody Pitcat. For Robbie Mays and Craig Moore, he's Buddy Long. I'm Kyle Rickey. We'll see you back here next week on NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com.
This has been NASCAR Coast to Coast with MRN short track experts Kyle Rickey and Buddy Long. Tune in next Wednesday at noon at MRN.com for more talk from NASCAR home tracks and touring series. NASCAR Coast to Coast is also available on demand in the MRN.com Media Center or download from iTunes or Stitcher. NASCAR Coast to Coast is a production of the Motor Racing Network. All rights reserved.